All right, everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be diving into a football match that, well, it had everyone talking Leyton Orient versus Manchester City, FA Cup.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, fourth round of the FA Cup. So,
yeah.
But trust me, this is not just any old match. We've got live updates and pre-game analysis, all kinds of stuff. And it reveals just how crazy this whole David and Goliath story got.
Yeah, I think what makes this match so interesting, really captivating, is the context, It's not just about, the score at the end, but it's about Leyton Orient.
Right.
A team from the third tier of English football. I mean, they're going head-to-head with the reigning Premier League champion.
Exactly. We're talking League One going up against the top dogs, the best of the Premier League.
Exactly.
And to make things even more interesting, well, Man City had just come off a pretty brutal loss to Arsenal. 5-1.
Oof.
So the question on everyone's mind was, are the champions, are they showing some cracks here?
Well, Leyton Orient, they've definitely got a history of finding those cracks. And, they pulled off a surprise win against Derby County. That was in the previous round.
Wow.
And Derby, they're a championship team, so that's a whole league above Leyton Orient. So they weren't coming into this match to just, make up the numbers. They were ready to really put up a fight.
And fight they did.
Yeah.
But before we get into all the crazy action, let's talk about Man City's starting lineup. They went with kind of an experimental team.
Yeah.
Including two players who were making their debuts, Vitor Reis and Nico Gonzalez.
Interesting.
Now, to someone who's not, constantly checking the Premier League table, what does that tell us?
Well, it tells us that Pep Guardiola, that's Man City's manager, he was thinking strategically. He had this massive Champions League game coming up against Real Madrid.
And that was just around the corner. So he probably wanted to rest some of his key players, give those younger guys a chance to kind of prove themselves. It's a calculated risk, though.
Yeah.
Especially in a knockout competition like the FA Cup.
Yeah, very risky. Okay, but now, picture this. First half, the tension is building. Everyone's on the edge of their seats. And suddenly, like a bolt from the blue, Leyton Orient's Jamie Donnelly, he unleashes this absolute screamer, and I mean a screamer, from the halfway line.
Oh, wow.
Talk about audacious.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So Donnelly, he sees the Man City goalkeeper. He's just a little bit off his line.
Yeah.
And he thinks, why not? Most players, they wouldn't even think to try that, especially not against a team like Man City.
Right.
But he did it.
And, even though it technically went down as an own goal.
Oh, really?
It was Donnelly's brilliance that created that opportunity. It's a moment that people will be talking about for years to come, own goal or not.
Okay, so that's how the first half ends. Leyton Orient won. Manchester City, the reigning champs, 0-0. Can you believe it? The underdogs at halftime are in the lead. What's going through Pep Guardiola's mind at this point?
Oh, he's definitely got to shake things up. And you know what? He does. He makes 2 substitutions right at halftime, brings on John Stones and Abdulkadir Kusanov, and I think that message was pretty clear. Okay, guys, get control of this match.
Yeah, and Man City, they definitely started the second half with a lot more intensity.
Oh, yeah.
They were really putting Leyton Orient's defense under some serious pressure, creating chances left and right. But Leyton Orient's manager, Richie Wellens, he clearly had his team prepped for this. I mean, they were defending, their lives depended on it.
Well, Wellens knew that they couldn't match Man City's style. That possession-based football where they just control the ball and dictate the pace of the game. So he focused on counterattacking, absorb the pressure, stay compact at the back, and then when they win the ball back, boom, they try to hit Man City quickly on the break.
And it almost worked. But then, oh man, disaster struck for Leyton Orient. Man City's Lewis gets a shot off, and it deflects. It deflects right off Leyton Orient's Kusanov, wrong-footing the keeper, finding the back of the net.
Oh, no.
Just bad luck for Leyton Orient. Because, they had been defending so well up to that point. You could really see the frustration building in the Man City players.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, we've talked about, that underdog spirit that Leyton Orient had, but let's rewind a little bit. Back to that, that unbelievable first half goal by Jamie Donnelly. Scoring from the halfway line.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing you usually only see, in highlight reels.
Exactly.
I bet even those, seasoned football commentators, the guys who've seen it all, right. I bet they were struggling to find the words.
It was a moment of just, pure audacity. And you know what's so fascinating to me? It's that split-second decision-making.
Yeah.
Donley, he sees the goalkeeper, the Man City goalkeeper, he's off his line just a bit. And he just thinks, okay, why not?
Right, yeah.
Most players wouldn't even like attempt that, especially against a team like Man City.
Yeah, exactly. It really shows like his confidence.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And his vision on the pitch.
For sure.
And it's like, even though technically, it went down as an own goal, it was Donley's, it was his brilliance that created that whole opportunity. It's going to be like etched in FA Cup history, own goal or not.
Absolutely. And this, this brings up a bigger point about the FA Cup itself.
Oh, yeah.
This competition, it just has a knack for producing these David versus Goliath moments. Like, the beauty of it being a knockout format, you know, is that, well, anything can happen on any given day. And because it includes teams from, all levels of English football, you get these incredible, like, clashes, these mismatches that you just wouldn't normally see in a regular season.
Right, yeah. It's like, the league form, all the reputation stuff, that kind of goes out the window.
Exactly.
And it all comes down to who shows up, who performs on the day. And we saw that with Leyton Orient. They weren't intimidated at all by Man City's, their star-studded lineup.
Nope.
All their recent success.
Not at all.
They came out with a game plan. They executed it, brilliantly, at least for a good chunk of that match. Yeah. And they really gave the champions a scare.
Yeah, they really did.
They did.
And, it wasn't just about the result either. It was about, like, the way they played. Fearless, pressing high, tackling hard. They never gave an inch. They really embodied like that whole underdog spirit, proving that even when the odds are completely stacked against you, you can still make a statement.
Their manager, Richie Wellens, he deserves a lot of credit for that. His tactical decisions, they were spot on. You were talking earlier about Man City's style of play, that possession-based football.
Yeah.
Wellens, he knew that, like going toe-to-toe with him on that was a losing battle. So what'd he do?
Well, he went with a strategy that was like all about disrupting Man City's rhythm, hitting them on the counterattack. Yeah. Pack the defense, close down those spaces, and then wait for that opportunity to like break forward quickly. They were so disciplined. Yeah,
it's like watching a well-oiled machine out there.
Exact.
And for a while, it really looked like they might just pull off one of the biggest upsets in FA Cup history.
Right.
But even the best laid plans, things can go wrong. Mm-hmm. And that deflected goal for Man City, that was a real turning point. How much of that do you think comes down to just like bad luck versus, Man City just having that sheer quality?
Well, there's always going to be like an element of luck in football, right?
Sure.
But you also have to give Man City credit for their persistence, their ability to kind of adapt to the situation. They kept probing, they kept creating those chances, and eventually they found a way to break through.
And that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between like a team like Man City and a team like Leyton Orient. Mm-hmm. Man City, they have this depth of talent, this experience that allows them to like weather the storm and then, eventually find a solution, even when they're not playing their best.
They've got that like winning mentality, that belief that they can just, overcome any obstacle. And that can be so intimidating for a team like Leyton Orient, who are, they're playing with all this weight, this expectation on their shoulders. They're trying to pull off this monumental upset.
Right.
It's tough.
But, even in defeat, Leyton Orient, they walked off that pitch with their heads held high. They earned the respect of, everyone who was watching, including, I'm sure, the Man City players themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to talking about, Man City's side of things.
Okay.
But I'm curious about something. You mentioned that this match could be a learning experience for Man City.
Yeah.
What exactly do you think they could learn from this game, especially with that massive Champions League game, the clash against Real Madrid coming up, What could they take away from this?
Well, that's a great question. One thing that really stands out to me is the importance of focus, Just concentration. Man City, they came into this match with this sort of experimental lineup, and maybe they underestimated Leyton Orient just a little bit.
Yeah, they might have been looking ahead in that Real Madrid game, thinking, okay, we can rotate the squad for this one; it'll be fine.
Exactly, and that complacency, it almost cost them.
Yeah.
Leyton Orient, they exposed some vulnerabilities there,
especially in defense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It showed that even a team like Man City, with all their talent, all their resources, they can still be susceptible to an upset.
Absolutely.
If they're not like, mentally switched on from the very first whistle.
Yeah, if they're not fully there, you're right.
This match, it was a reminder that in the FA Cup there are no easy games. You have to approach every opponent with respect and focus.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Leyton Orient, their heroic performance.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears here. Let's talk about Man City. We know they won.
They did.
But it wasn't exactly, a walk in the park.
No.
What were your impressions of their performance?
Well, I think it's fair to say that they weren't at their best.
Yeah.
They looked a bit sluggish at times, a bit disjointed.
Yeah.
You have to remember they were coming off the heavy defeat to Arsenal.
Right.
And you could kind of sense a bit of a hangover from that result.
They didn't seem to have their usual, their swagger.
Yeah.
And that experimental lineup, that probably didn't help either.
No, probably not. Let's dig into that lineup a little bit more. So Guardiola, he chose to start Vitor Reis and Nico Gonzalez, right? These are two young players making their debut for the senior team. And this raises some interesting questions. Why these two specifically? Was it just about like resting key players? Or was Guardiola trying to give them some valuable experience in a high pressure situation?
Right. And how did they actually perform? Did they live up to the expectations?
Well, it's always tricky to judge a player based on just one performance, especially in a game like this where, the team as a whole wasn't really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, good point. So besides those debut players, were there any other notable performances from Man City? Any players who stood out, either, positively or negatively?
John Stones, he came on as a substitute at halftime.
Oh, yeah.
He made a pretty significant impact.
Yeah, he brought some much needed composure, some stability to the defense.
Exactly. He's known for being calm under pressure, his ability to read the game.
Right.
He was instrumental in helping Man City regain control of that match and ultimately, secure the victory.
So Man City, maybe they weren't at their best.
Nope.
But they still found a way to win. That's the mark of a champion, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
The ability to grind out those results, even when things aren't going their way.
Absolutely. But this match, it also highlighted some potential areas of concern for Man City.
Uh-huh.
They looked vulnerable defensively at times, and their attack it lacked that usual fluidity.
And you have to wonder how much that 5-1 loss to Arsenal, how much that played on their minds.
Right.
Did it affect their confidence?
It's tough to say for sure, but it's definitely possible, and that's something they'll need to address pretty quickly if they want to challenge for both the Premier League title and the Champions League.
So is this like a wake-up call for Man City?
No.
A reminder that they can't afford to take any opponent lightly? Or was it just a minor blip, like a temporary setback on their path to glory? All right, so we've talked about Leyton Orient, their valiant effort, and Man City, their performance, which was maybe a little bit shaky.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a second. Think about the bigger picture here. This match, for me, it really kind of shows what the FA Cup is all about. What do you think makes it so special?
I think it's that unpredictability. It's a knockout tournament, which means every single match has that do or die feeling. And because it includes teams from, literally all levels of English football,
right,
you get these incredible David versus Goliath clashes that, you just wouldn't see in a regular season.
It's like, league form, reputation, all that stuff. It just kind of goes out the window.
Totally.
And it all comes down to, who shows up on the day. And we saw that with Leyton Orient. They were not intimidated by Man City, by their star-studded lineup, or their recent successes. They came out, they had a game plan, and they executed it. Brilliantly for a good part of the match, and they really gave the champions a scare.
Yeah. And this match, it was kind of a reminder that in football, just like in life, upsets can happen, and the underdogs, they can have their moment. And for fans, that's what makes the FA Cup so great. It's that hope, right? That their team, no matter how small, no matter, how unfancied they are, they could pull off a giant killing. write their name in FA Cup history.
And even for fans of the bigger teams, there's that thrill of seeing their team tested.
Yeah.
Seeing them having to like really dig deep and fight for every inch.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not always pretty, but it's definitely entertaining.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this brings us back to Man City and their Champions League clash against Real Madrid. Do you think this FA Cup match, even though they won, do you think maybe it exposed some weaknesses that Real Madrid could take advantage of?
It's possible. We saw some defensive vulnerabilities, especially in that first half when Leyton Orient were pressing high and kind of forcing those mistakes, and without their usual starting lineup, Man City's attack, it didn't have that same fluidity, that precision that we're used to seeing. Yeah. Real Madrid, they're a team that's known for their clinical finishing.
Right.
Their ability to just punish any little mistake, any defensive error. And if Man City doesn't, tighten things up at the back and rediscover that attacking spark, they could be in for a tough time against Real Madrid.
So this FA Cup match, it might have been like a blessing in disguise for Man City. It kind of gave them a taste of what can happen when they're not at their best. And it exposed some areas where they need to improve.
It's definitely a valuable learning experience for them. Especially with the end of the season coming up, they're going to need to learn from this, make those adjustments, and come back stronger. If they want to achieve those big goals.
Well, this deep dive has been it's been quite a ride. We saw the highs, that incredible goal from Donnelly, the lows, that late heartbreak for Leyton Orient, and then all these really interesting questions about Man City.
Yeah.
About their form and the challenges that are coming up.
Yeah, it's been great. Tactics, underdogs, the unpredictability of football, it's all here.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we want to hear from you. What are your takeaways from this match? Did it make you believe in the magic of the FA Cup even more? Share your thoughts, join the conversation, and until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that passion for the beautiful game alive.